The silent kill, the town of Black Hollow, had always been eerily quiet at night. But lately, the silence had taken on a new, unnatural weight, like the air itself was holding its breath. It started with whispers. People claimed to hear faint voices in their homes, barely audible but unmistakably real. Then, one by one, they began to disappear. No screams. No signs of struggle. Just empty houses and untouched beds. Detective Alan Graves had seen his fair share of strange cases, but this was different. No evidence, no witnesses, just a growing sense of dread, creeping through the town like an invisible force. As he dug deeper, Alan uncovered an old legend, one the locals refused to speak about. A creature that thrived in silence. It didn't hunt in darkness, it hunted in the absence of sound. Now, Alan sat alone in his apartment, the city outside deathly still. His heart pounded as he realized the truth. As long as he stayed silent, he was safe. But if he made even the slightest sound, it would come for him. Do you want me to continue? Let me know how you'd like the story to unfold. You said. Continue, ChatGPT said. Alan sat frozen, barely daring to breathe. His apartment was bathed in darkness, the only light coming from the dim glow of a street lamp outside. The city was unnervingly still, no honking cars, no distant footsteps, no rustling wind. Then, he heard it. A creak outside his door. His pulse spiked. Someone or something was out there. Slowly, Alan reached for his gun, making sure not to let the leather holster scrape against his belt. His fingers wrapped around the cold steel, his body tense. If the legend was true, the moment he made a sound, it would strike. Another creak. This time, closer. Alan's eyes flickered to the door. A shadow slipped underneath, shifting, stretching unnaturally. He held his breath. The thing wasn't just standing there, it was listening. His phone vibrated on the table. The sound was deafening in the silence. Alan's blood ran cold. The shadow under the door twitched. Then, the doorknob started turning. His mind raced. He had two choices: stay completely silent and hope it would leave. Break the silence and fight. His phone vibrated again. The door creaked open an inch. A soft whisper drifted into the room, chilling him to the bone. "I hear you." The lights flickered. And then, the door burst open. "Want me to keep going? Let me know how you want the story to unfold." You said. Continue, ChatGPT said. The door slammed open, but there was nothing. Alan's breath hitched. His gun was raised, finger steady on the trigger, but his apartment stood empty. The hallway beyond was a yawning void of blackness, the street lamp outside flickering wildly. His phone stopped vibrating. Silence returned, heavier than before. Then, the temperature dropped. A shiver ran down Alan's spine as the air around him thickened. It felt wrong, like something unseen had stepped into the room with him. His instincts screamed at him to run, to make a noise, to break the silence, but he forced himself to stay still. A shadow shifted near the far wall. Alan's grip tightened on his gun. His mouth was dry, his pulse hammering in his ears. Slowly, carefully, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a lighter. With a quick flick, a spark. A flame. For a fraction of a second, the fire illuminated the room. And that's when he saw it. A figure stood inches away, twisted and hunched, its body wrapped in a shifting void of darkness. Its face, or what should have been a face, was nothing but a gaping, featureless maw. The air around it was completely still, like it was sucking the sound out of existence. Alan's stomach dropped. The thing didn't move. It didn't breathe. It simply waited. Then, his lighter flickered out. Darkness swallowed the room. A breath. Not his own. And then, directly against his ear, "Speak." The voice was soft, almost gentle. But Alan knew the moment he answered, the moment he made a sound, Alan clenched his jaw, forcing himself to remain silent. Every nerve in his body screamed at him to react, to run, scream, fight, but he knew that was exactly what it wanted. The creature stood close enough that he could feel the icy air around it. It didn't move. It didn't breathe. It simply waited. Alan's mind raced. Think, damn it. His gun was useless. He doubted bullets could stop something that seemed to be made of darkness itself. But if the legends were true, this thing thrived in silence. That meant sound could hurt it. Alan's fingers twitched toward his phone on the table. If he could just turn on a loud enough noise, music, an alarm, anything, it might drive the thing back. But how could he reach it without making a sound? A soft scraping noise made his blood freeze. The creature's head tilted. It had noticed his slight movement. Alan stopped breathing. The silence stretched. And then, in the distance, a car alarm went off. The sound shattered the stillness like a thunderclap. The creature twitched violently, its shadowy form rippling as if in pain. Alan didn't hesitate. He lunged for his phone, slamming his finger on the screen. Blaring sirens erupted from the speakers. The creature let out a horrid, guttural shriek, a sound so unnatural it made Alan's skin crawl. Its form convulsed, writhing as if the very existence of noise was poisoning it. Then, in a blink, it melted into the darkness, vanishing like smoke. The silence returned. But Alan knew better now. It wasn't gone. It was waiting, watching. And the next time the world fell completely silent, it would come again. Alan sat frozen, his breath ragged, the sound of the car alarm still echoing in the distance. His body trembled, but his mind was racing. It worked. The sound drove it away. But it wasn't gone. He could feel it. Watching. Waiting. Slowly, Alan stood, his fingers still gripping his phone like a lifeline. The apartment was empty, but the silence felt heavier, as if the air itself was pressing in on him. The thing was still near. It just couldn't reach him. Not while there was noise. Then, the car alarm cut off. Silence swallowed the world again. Alan's stomach twisted. He had to act fast. If it came back, he might not be lucky next time. He grabbed his keys, his jacket, and his gun. He needed to get out, get somewhere with people, with constant noise, somewhere it couldn't hunt him. The hallway outside was pitch black. The lights had gone out. He took careful, slow steps, making sure the floor didn't creak. His heartbeat thundered in his ears, and every shadow felt alive. Then, his phone screen flickered. A text message appeared. Unknown number. You can't run. Alan's breath caught. His grip on the phone tightened. Then, another message. You made a sound. A cold dread spread through his body. He hadn't spoken. Hadn't screamed. Hadn't done anything to break the silence. But then, he realized, the phone buzzed when the message came in. A faint sound. Small. Barely noticeable. But it was enough. From the end of the hallway, in the pitch-black darkness, something moved. A slow, wet dragging sound. Alan turned and ran. Want me to keep going? The horror is just getting started. You said. Continue, ChatGPT said. The silent kill. Alan bolted down the hallway, his breath coming in sharp, silent gasps. Every instinct screamed at him to run faster, to scream for help, but he knew better. It wanted him to make noise. Behind him, the wet, dragging sound grew closer. His heart pounded as he reached the stairwell. The flickering emergency light barely illuminated the cracked concrete step. Going down meant heading into darkness, but staying here? That was death. Alan gritted his teeth and moved. He took each step carefully, avoiding loose debris that could make a sound. His hands gripped the railing, sweaty and cold. Then, a whisper from above. You can't run forever. Alan's chest tightened. The voice was closer than it should have been. It wasn't chasing him. It was already here. Something shifted in the shadows ahead. A flicker of motion, almost imperceptible. Then, in the dim light, Alan saw it, a hand, long and thin, stretching from the darkness below. It curled over the railing, fingers twisting unnaturally. Alan stumbled back. His heel scraped against the floor. A sound. The thing lunged. Alan barely threw himself sideways as a mass of writhing shadows slammed into the wall beside him. The impact sent a shock wave of silence through the stairwell, sucking the noise out of the air like a vacuum. Alan hit the floor, his phone slipping from his grip. The screen cracked as it skidded across the tiles. Silence. The creature froze. Alan's breath caught. His phone had made a sound. Slowly, impossibly, the thing turned its head toward him. Then, in a voice that sounded like dozens of whispers layered on top of each other, it spoke. "I hear you." And then, it attacked.